Thank you so much. We are the Meridian Early College High School Jazz Ensemble located in Sanford, Michigan, which is a town that most of you have no idea where that is. So if you pull out your Michigan map, we're right here. Just a very small village, about 700 people in our village, and we're just having a great time out here. And we love being back at the Detroit Jazz Festival. Isn't this a wonderful facility? Yes, absolutely. And you've heard some fantastic jazz, and we hope to keep that going for you. And I know there's some wonderful groups to follow. And then we make our way downtown to Hart Plaza and Campus Marsh. It's just a great, great festival. We're so thankful for the Detroit Jazz Festival and the committee for allowing us to be here. We're going to move into a ballad now. We're going to feature one of our recent graduates. This is Jaren Egan. Jaren is going to be performing on the flute, or trumpet today. And this is My Funny Valentine. No, not My Funny Valentine. I Remember Clifford. You know, we could play My Funny Valentine, but I think we'll play I Remember Clifford because that's the one we have. So, all right, here's a Benny Golson classic. All right, let's see if I can get the title of this one correct. This is a Mercer Ellington tune. So Duke's son Mercer wrote this. This is Things Ain't What They Used to Be. And we're going to feature a number of solos on this, and I will introduce them after this piece. So, Things Ain't What They Used to Be.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1.
All right, soloists on that one. We have Jay Perry on trumpet. Lexi Crowder on the vibes. Jared Egan on trumpet. We're going to have to call him the plumber. Keeps bringing that plunger out. Josh Smith on trombone. We've just had a wonderful time being here, and we want to thank again Chris Collins and Chuck, also Newsom for the hospitality of allowing us to come back and perform again. This is one of the highlights of the year for us. Even though we're kicking off the new school year, it's kind of a good way to reflect on what we did over the last year. So I want to thank them and big congratulations to the other ensembles that are here this afternoon and evening as well. Be sure to check them out. There's just some really great music going on. And I'd say jazz is alive in America. It's the greatest American art form, absolutely. We're going to finish out with kind of a rock jazz standard. This is Birdland, and we're going to feature Jaron again on the trumpet, and Josh, I think maybe sans plunger this time on trombone. And again, just thanks so much for your hospitality. It's been great to play for you today, and keep supporting jazz because it means a lot to us that you're here today. So here's Birdland.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Meridian High School basketball. One more time. As they're leaving the stage, two quick announcements.